Alright, I'm gonna make another cabinet humidor, and I had this door left over from when I was doing a kitchen rebuild. And instead of letting this door go to waste, I decided I'm gonna build the humidor around this door. Most of the time, you would start with the carcass, and then you'd build the door, near the end of your build. But I want to kind of challenge myself, and there again, not let this door go to waste. So I'm gonna begin with cutting this alder plywood down to the size of the carcass is going to be. So here I am ripping and cross-cutting these down to size. And now I'm using the pocket hole jig, and I'm going to use this to get the carcass together. However, if I was going to hide the screws, the screws have to be on the inside, which is not the strongest way to do pocket holes. They need to be on the outside. So I went ahead and came back and just used the domino. So they did get pocket hole with the screw, but also with the domino as well. And here I am using 2 pieces, so I have something for the domino to sit on that's a little bit wider, 1.5 inches compared to 3/4. Just makes it a little easier, so I'll make sure I'm sitting flat. And here I'm sanding down the sides of the dominoes, just because if you don't, and since I'm just dry fitting here, it makes it hard to get the dominoes back out when it comes time to put the glue in. So you just sand the little sides off, and they still fit tight enough, but they're a lot easier to get out. And after I did the dry fit, everything was good. So now I'm going to glue everything up. Make sure I'm using plenty of glue. And with those pocket holes there, my thought was anyways, I'm going to put some type of border around there, some trim or whatnot, so that I get them covered up anyways. But like I said, I just decided to go ahead and double up, do the domino and the pocket holes, and that thing ain't going nowhere. So now I'm clamped it up in the clamps, and while it's clamped up, it makes it a lot easier to go ahead and put the pocket holes in. Even though with the dominoes in there, it probably wouldn't have went anywhere anyways, but it's out of habit. And this is your rough sawn Spanish cedar. So this is how it looks when it's still in, and this is 8/4 right here. So I'm cutting it up, and I'm gonna mill it first, joint the face, and then joint one of the edges. And I did this to multiple boards. I had them cut down to I can't remember, 17, 18 inches. And then here I am cutting them down to about 5 inches wide. This way I could resaw them on the table saw. And usually I make panels out of those things and put them in there. This time I decided just to do them one at a time. Just makes it a little bit easier. Making sure, when you do a panel, you gotta make sure it's all squared up with those little thin veneers. And this way it's definitely a lot easier, and it's also easier to get it clamped in place as well. So make sure I'm getting plenty of glue on there. And being that they are so thin, it's not going to be very much expansion in those things whatsoever, so you're not going to have to worry about that. And at this point, I had it all clamped up, and the back was just on there so I could get everything lined up. And or I'd already had it put the veneer on there, but I didn't glue it up. So once again, it just made everything easier to clamp up and everything. So put the glue on there, and I had a rabbet going around the back, and I'm just gonna hammer it in place. It's a 3/4 inch piece of plywood, so it's gonna be a 3/4 inch rabbet. And now once again, I'm applying clamps to the bottom to force that back piece down in the spot and let the glue set up. And I'm gonna go ahead and pin them in place as well, so it'll be doubled up. All right, so normally when I do these humidors and I'm cutting off the excess veneer off the front. I usually just use a flush trim saw, but this multi-tool, I always forget about it. So I was like, well, let me give this a try and see how that works. And it's definitely a little easier. You have to get as close as you can. Well, I was using a dull blade, so if I had a sharper blade, it'd probably been better, but just a little sanding, it cleared all the tear out and all that up pretty easy. And just lightly going over the inside of the veneer. Some of the glue that might squeezed out, I'm kind of sanding over the top of that. And I do go back and give it a better sanding off camera. Okay, now I've got some solid alder and I'm cutting it down. I'm resawing it here, and I'm making the trim that's going to cover up all the ends of the plywood on the carcass. I think I took it down to 3/4, maybe a little less than 3/4 here. And now I'm just gonna glue the trim on, clamp it up. And I do this on the top. The back I used just like 1/2 inch to cover up the plywood ends. And so the top got that, the sides got that, and the bottom did not get it, if I remember correctly. And something I'm doing different on this one as well is normally I don't use the like cabinet door hinges or the European style hinges, so I don't need a face frame that hangs over the edge like what you have on your cabinets in your kitchen. But I want to try the European hinges on this one just to see how well it works and everything. So this one will have like a 1/2 inch overhang, I believe. And now I'm making some molding. So I'm going to put a little rabbet on there, which is going to overhang the edge. And make sure I get my measurement right, then I'll do all the other ones. And I'm going to cut them down the length, and I am going to put a miter on these. Now it's time for my favorite thing, which is gluing up miters. I did, and you'll see later in this video, probably part 2, I bought some pinch clamps, and I'm a big fan of those now. First time I ever used them, I didn't have no slippage on the miters. It was unbelievable how easy it was. I should have got those things years ago. So if you've never used pinch clamps, give them a try. I mean, I always try to avoid miters when I can, just because of the glue up. And now I'm gonna use miters every chance I get because of those pinch clamps. It really is. I hate to use this word because it gets so used so often on YouTube, but it's game changer for real. Now after I glued it up, I'm doing a pretty large round over. And then I'm giving all the trim on the carcass that I just put on there. I'm giving it all around over. This one right here, I think actually on the sides, I put an OG on there. I couldn't decide if I want to make my own molding for the sides or just do the OG. I went with the simple way and did just the OG. It's all right. I think I could have probably did a better job, made my own, but I'll stick with the OG. There again, just to strengthen those miters up, I made some splines, and I used Spanish cedar here, just basically because, well, I got Spanish cedar on the inside, so I want to have a little bit of a contrast, and why not use the wood that's on the inside, And now I'm going to take this piece, and this is where the rabbit comes into play. I'm going to place that over the top of the carcass, and it's a slide on down. Clamp it up. And a lot of times I don't follow plans. I just kind of go as I go. Stuff changes and everything. So I decided I want to have a drawer on this thing. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm actually building another carcass to go underneath the first carcass, so I can put a drawer inside there. So that's what I'm doing now. And I just use simple butt joints on this. Glued and screwed. Okay, I got some more of the alder here, and here I'm going to be making the legs, and so I want to put a taper on the legs. So I got my little homemade jig here, putting a little taper down at the bottom, and I'm gonna glue these up, basically kind of like a butt joint, more or less. Not sure exactly what they call it, but you'll see in a moment what I'm talking about. This right here. So now I'm just gluing and clamping them up, and then I'm gonna add a round over to it. And this is I've got the bottom part where the drawer is going to be. I've got it attached now, and so what I was doing there with the router is I'm making some basically slits for ventings, because inside the drawer, that's where the humidifier is going to go. So this way the humidity will be able to go from the drawer into the actual humidor itself to humidify the cigars. And here I'm just making a simple drawer. That was the sides, and this is going to be the bottom. So the camera was not in the right position there, but I glued the top back on after I slid the bottom in, glued it up, pinned it, clamped it, and now I am gluing on the legs. And I believe what I'm doing there is I'm adding a spacer there, because I'm gonna put a drawer slide. And so I did that spacer. I actually didn't get it quite thin enough. So what I ended up having to do was take the drawer itself over and take a little bit off the sides, as you can see, like right there at the bottom. It was probably not even a 1/16 of an inch, maybe a 32nd or whatever. And just like butter, now I'm gonna put on the other two legs. clamping them up and getting rid of all the little squeeze out. And here I am gluing up a panel of ALDER for the door face. And adding some more trim along the bottom of the drawer area. Pinning it on, gluing it. And now putting the drawer face on. And you'll see in a minute, I'm gonna put a piece of tape up there at the top. That's just basically so I can line the drawer up with being able to actually close the door and then open the door back up, as you'll see in a moment here. There you go. And I'm gonna throw some clamps on there. Once I get the clamps on, then I'll come with some screws on the inside to screw the drawer face into place. And now I'm just putting on some like quarter cove around, just to kind of help with the flow and cover up any gaps that might be there. Not that there was really any gaps or anything, you know, wink wink. But I thought it really, the flow really came out nice. So anyways, this will be part 1. I'm gonna come out with part 2. So please stay tuned for it. All right, here we go for part 2. And here I'm just resawing some of the Spanish cedar, which is gonna be for the cigar baskets. This is the part that probably takes the longest. All right, once I get this done, resawing some more Spanish cedar, and this is gonna be for the sides of the baskets. And I'm putting a rabbet on the ends, just to helps to make, when I put the outside styles or whatever you want to call them, just makes it easier to line everything up and make sure it's square. And right here, this is what I'm doing. Gonna glue it and use my pen nailer to make sure they are attached really well. And these may look flimsy, but they're actually really strong. And at the end of the day, they don't have to hold a lot anyways. They're only holding about 50 cigars or so. Now I'm placing a second piece at the back. And this will be mainly just so I can have this piece right here to attach to the back. I'll attach it to the back and to the front. And sometimes I run those pieces side to side. Sometimes I run them front to back. This time I went front to back, and I'm using a spacer there to make sure they're evenly spaced. You don't want them too far apart because the cigars will fall through it. And then again, you don't want them too close because the humidity will have trouble getting through. And plus, the closer you get, the more you'll have to make. And here I just made some trim to go along the outside edges. I'm sorry, the inside edges. This really made them look nice and clean. And right here, I mitered the edges of this trim. And this is the top of it. And now that I got these pinch clamps, I'm definitely going to be doing a lot more mitered edges, just because those pinch clamps really make it easier to clamp that up. Something so simple, I'm just blown away by how well they work and how easy they are to use. After I got that top trim on, I'm adding some more quarter round, or no, not quarter round, whatever it's called. And then here I'm using my biscuit cutter to cut splines. That's just to strengthen up the miters. Put some glue on. I'll let that glue dry and then come back and cut them off with a flush trim saw. And this is what I kind of called an audible. I decided I was going to put a piece on top of the humidor, so this way you could keep your accessories such as your cutters, lighters, butane, whatever else you'd like to keep in there. And at this point I don't have it attached in there. I came back, I did a little round over on this just to kind of cut the edges a little bit, make them a little more softer to the touch. And then I'm gonna place it back in there. And I'm gonna cover up the plies on the plywood. As you can see, I took my mark there and took it over to the miter saw, and you only see me do it once. I probably did it like 12 times. Just each time I just was scared I was gonna take too much off. And then I'm using this little, made a little wedge here because I'm gonna tilt the piece of plywood up so the shelf will be more displayable. After I did this is when I thought of the way I should have done it. And well, I'll probably make a small video showing you how I should have went about doing this, and I just overthought it and made it harder than what it should have been. So this is the reason why I ended up doing it like this. But if I ever do this again, I definitely know the way I'm going to do it next time. And here I am, I'm putting the shelf in, and I am going to come back, and this shelf is going to be covered with leather, just like the top of this shelf. This is going to be the top of the humidor. I covered it with leather as well. And once again, I use my biscuit cutter to cut these splines. Super easy way to do splines. Super easy. Flush trim saw. And I'll come back later when I'm sanding and I'll sand all that flush. Now I'm going to glue the top on. Pin nail it, glue it, come back, clamp it. And I wanted to use drawer slides on this, and I got highly frustrated and decided, okay, I'm just gonna do it a different way. So as you can see, this right here, I just made my own kind of like slides. I didn't get a lot of footage of this because I just got super frustrated. But it's just a little simple thing. Use some scrap wood to do this. Once again, using a spacer in between to make sure everything is even. Here I am cutting the leather. And I did look it up, and they said that you could use regular PVA glue to put this leather on. Contact cement probably would have been the best option, but I really did not want to screw that up. I've not had much practice with that, and I know that once the two sides touch, it's a done deal, so I just kind of went the safe route on it. So I did one side, now I'm put some glue on the other side. and just smooth it out. Make sure it's getting good contact in all places. Use my little glue roller there to help. And I think just using my hands was probably the best way to do it. Came back and I trimmed up the excess leather off. And then now I'm putting some more trim around the top. And once again, here's my pinch clamps. I can't stress how much I love them things. That's gotta be one of my favorite tools right there. All right, now I'm coming with the pin nailer and just making sure everything's pinned down. So I put the clamps on, and now I'm just trimming this, cutting this little small piece that's going to cover up some ply on the lid. As you can see right here, it's just a little small piece, and that's how it's going to look. And that's how that's going to look. Those are not attached yet, but here I am using my domino because this is how I'm going to attach the grid together. I didn't get a lot of footage of this either. And here I am staining this, and I really thought I screwed up on this one. I used a stain, and I've never stained ALDER before, and after going through this and staining this whole thing, come to find out the ALDER is one of the worst ones to try to stain. It blotches a lot, but I was able to come back with a darker stain to go over it, and it really turned out good. Here's where I put the leather on the inside, and now I'm putting some trim around it. And here's the grid. It's been dominoed together, glued up. Now I'm going to pin it in place. And this is where I'm gonna put the little cord. It's one of those things you put on your computer desk, and you can run the cord down to the computer. It just kind of makes it look a little cleaner. In this instance, you're gonna use a humidifier in the bottom of that drawer, like you saw in part one. And you'll see here in a minute, I had to use my file to kind of get it just a little bit wider opening so this would fit through. So this is what this is. So this way, like I said, you can plug the humidifier in on the inside. All right, the humidor is done. I still gotta get the glass in the door, but other than that, it's done. This is the accessory top up here. You store your butane, your lighters, your cutters. And then on top, you've also got storage up on top if you want to put an ashtray up there along with lighters or cutters. So here it is. Like I said, just got the glass put in, the humidifier will go down inside the drawer. You have 4 trays.